Church, that Dinola, Tomandilla Pemniga, Kalamnayari, the moment the other Bori with the Mombochiga, then the Pepsi number 10, 10 number 3, the Coronso, the Nichino, the Nashibadan, Narosu, Muni, Kawapina, Armuchi, Pepsina, Goya, Kitchen 2 data, Pachitomi, Hak with the cushion by the Yori, the girl. Dirigio Canada in Tamadi Chakayore in Rumuche, Nigojamni, Don Yamazilla, Rumuche Arila, Chigirna Yore, Dini Rumuche, introduced La Dasichi, the Pembo Yore, Yena and also Kurikunda Mombochi, that the Pemniga, Pepsi number 10, Mombochi Chindu, in the number of Tomalo. Tujicisha, Manoto Chiguea, the Chayore, Mao Balangaro, Chinyam, Putopota, and Zomeaga, Molam, Tachidella Mongoshirian, Somalo Tachidella.
A great pleasure to have you here. You can sense there is so much love for you here in this room. So we're very honoured to have you here.
Did you get one?
In a moment, we'll have a chance for you to have a conversation with your friend Richard Layard about our vision for creating a happier world. But before we do that, we would love to sort of start by setting the scene for today and talking about, I think, what's shared by everyone in this room, Your Holiness, which is a desire to create a happier world. And so I would like to just say a few words about what we're trying to do here in Britain and around the world to promote your ideas and many of the ideas that people in this room share, And I'd love to introduce you to a couple of people who've been affected by our work and who would have a story to tell, which I think all of us will really enjoy hearing today. So Action for Happiness is a movement that we founded 4 years ago, and Your Holiness, you've been connected with it since the start, and that's absolutely fantastic for us. Our vision is really that the world that we live in has its priorities wrong, and we as individuals, many of us have our priorities wrong. And in fact, what matters most is human happiness and well-being. And this obsession with growing the economy and this obsession with material progress isn't really the path to a happy life. So what's fantastic about this room you see before you today is people here who are committed to a different vision of what a successful society looks like. And many, many people in this room have taken great action in their workplaces, in their schools, in their communities to contribute to a different set of priorities. In all the things we've done with Action for Happiness, we've discovered that although it's important to work in school classrooms, it's important to shape government policy, it's important to change the way we treat each other in our communities, the most important thing we have found is that bringing people together to have conversations about the subjects that really matter, to talk from the heart about what's happening in their lives, really can change their lives. So, Your Holiness, we're delighted that you and indeed everyone here today is helping us launch a wonderful course called Exploring What Matters, which brings people together to talk about the things that really matter in their lives. It's an 8-week course, and it allows people to explore for themselves what really creates a happy life. Not just for us as individuals, but crucially in terms of what we can all do to contribute to a better world that we'd all like to be part of. We have run this course in many communities, and what we're going to see today is, I hope, with all the coverage that's coming from today's event, a great upswell in the numbers of people who want to take these ideas forward. But what I wanted to do was to introduce you to 2 people who've experienced the Action for Happiness course, and for whom it's had an impact on their lives, and I hope will have an impact as a result on all of us. So I'd like all of you, please, to join me in welcoming 2 very special people. First of all, a lady called Jasmine Hodgley, and secondly, a teacher called Adrian Buffoon. Please welcome them to the stage. I'll let Jasmine introduce herself, but Jasmine, perhaps you could tell us a little bit about what was happening in your life when you discovered Action for Happiness in our course and what's happened as a result.
After 35 years of having worked, I had a very bad accident in March 2011, which increased my chronic pain quite severely. I was unable to work, and as a consequence of not being able to work with the pain I was in, I sank into a very deep depression. I discovered Action for Happiness's website, found Mentors for Daily Living, and decided to become a member. Later on that year, I went to an Action for Happiness talk with John Cabezens, and I had my first light bulb moment where I realised that I could have a different relationship with the chronic pain I was experiencing. And later on that year, I went on the first pilot Exploring What Matters course held by Action for Happiness. It's an 8-week course. Some of the areas it covers are mindfulness, connecting with people, what you can do in the world to make a difference, and several other areas, the world of work, community, etc. I had my second light bulb moment in the week of work on the Exploring What Matters course, where I began to realise I had lost my passion and my hope for the future. Where I began to realise in the small group that I was in, talking with other people, that, hang on a minute, I could actually get back into the world of work, reinvent myself, and help others in chronic pain. So that was the beginning of my life becoming hopeful again and me rediscovering my passion. Some of the things I gained from the course was the importance of connecting with others, how helping others can help one's own mental health, and also the importance of the little things that you can do to make a difference in your community, in your neighbourhood, in the workplace, and in the world. I'm a very different person to the person that I was before I began the Action for Happiness course. It has had a profound effect on my life. I still have my daily challenges with my health, but one of the things that I decided that I was going to do during the course was be the change that I wanted to see in the world. I'm very grateful for the course, and I think it's a course that everybody should go on, because it really does make a difference on a daily basis to those that have done it. And I know because I'm one of those people. Thank you.
Jasmine, thank you so much. What we love about Jasmine's story so much is that sort of dual transformation that she described in her life, where not only did connecting with these ideas about living a happy life change her own experience, but she then inspired to help others. And I think your message so clearly has always been, Your Holiness, that actually a lot of our happiness comes from helping others, and Jasmine has given us a really lovely example of that. I'd now like to introduce Adrian Bethune, who's a teacher at a primary school, and I'll let him explain what he's done as a result of these ideas.
Hi, I'd just like to start by saying what a huge honour it is to speak at an event like today's about my experience of attending the Exploring What Matters course and sharing the stage with Lord Richard Layard and His Holiness the Dalai Lama, two people who have truly made the world a happier place. So, 6 years ago I retrained to become a primary school teacher with the intention of improving the lives of young people. However, when I started my training, I quickly found that actually the focus of education in this country was relentlessly on academic attainment, children making certain levels of progress every year, and I had to jump through so many hoops I lost sight of my original intention, and I became quite disillusioned with teaching. And then two things happened that started to change that. First, I read a fantastic book by Ian Morris called Teaching Happiness and Wellbeing. Secondly, I attended the launch event of Action for Happiness back in 2011. And those two things really helped me reconnect back with my original goal of wanting to improve the lives of young people. So I started making small changes in my classroom. I began a daily meditation practice with my class, having done a mindfulness course myself. I taught many neuroscience lessons to my class. I taught them how their brains work, how they learn, and tried to foster a growth mindset in them. And I rebranded Anti-Bullying Week in my school, which I felt always had a negative message, and I rebranded it to It's Called to Be Kind Week, where the children were encouraged to go out to the local community and carry out random acts of kindness. And then fast forward a few years, and then I attend the Exploring What Matters course. And that had a really big impact, not only on my own personal levels of happiness and well-being, but on my teaching practice. And there were definitely times, I'll be honest, when after a busy day at school, sometimes a hectic day, to go to the course in the evening and talk about happiness and what really matters was the last thing that I wanted to do. I'd rather go home and just crash out on the sofa. But without fail, every week I'd come away from the course re-energised and inspired for the week ahead. And the beauty of the course for me was its simplicity. Not only do you find out the latest research and evidence, the science of happiness, but each week you had to commit to one action to carry out the following week, to either improve your own happiness or the happiness of people around you. So I thought my classroom would be the perfect place to try out some of these ideas. And I'd like to share a couple of examples of the things I did. One of the things I introduced into my classroom was called What Went Well. And this is where on a Friday, at the end of a busy week, I'd get my class to stop, we'd think back over the week we've just had, and we'd think of 3 good things that went well for us. We'd write these down, and then the whole class would share these, and we'd celebrate the positive week we've had in school. And not only did this create a lovely atmosphere in class, ending the week on a high so that we're ready to come back on Monday, but it really showed me what was important to the children that I taught. It taught me what made my children happy. And the other thing that I did off the back of the course was I wanted to have the most impactful It's Cool to Be Kind week in our school ever. I wanted the children in my school to spread as much kindness and happiness as they could possibly do. And I challenged each class to carry out a class act of kindness in the local community. And all the classes came up with really unique, interesting ideas. And 2 of our Year 5 classes were learning the song Don't Stop Believing in their music lessons. And they thought it'd be a great idea to go to Brockley Station at 9 a.m. in the morning and greet commuters with renditions of Don't Stop Believing. And these normally miserable commuters were smiling, laughing, clapping. But actually one lady was actually brought to tears by the singing, and not because it was out of tune, but because actually, unfortunately, her son was at a different school and he was being bullied at that school. And she said, just seeing our children, 60 children from all different backgrounds, singing, having fun, spreading kindness, it really lifted her spirits and gave her hope that actually her son was going to be okay. And another class, Year 3, they wrote happiness quotes and messages, and beautifully illustrated, and they stapled them to the front of Metro newspapers. And as we all know, Metro is often full of miserable stories. And the messages said things like, it's cool to be kind, or that smile looks good on you, or do more of what makes you happy. And they also had the school email address on it, and a little message that said, if this makes you smile, please let us know and pass it on to someone else. And then slowly but surely, we started to get emails to the school email address about, it brightening up people's days and putting a smile on people's faces. And they came from people that found the paper on the Central line, the Northern line, the District line. And it was so amazing to be able to show our children that from your small action, started in Brockley, you have literally spread happiness and kindness across the whole of London. And I think that's one of the most valuable things about It's Cool to Be Kind Week, that the children get to experience firsthand that they can make a change. They can, through one small action at a time, make the world a happier place. But that's enough from me. I would thoroughly recommend you attend the course. It will inspire you, it might make you happier, but the only way you'll find out is by actually taking part in the course. I'd love for you now to hear from 3 of the children that I taught last year they're going to talk very briefly about what they experienced through some of the happiness ideas I introduced. Please would you welcome on stage from John Stainer School, Nolan, Karan and Lara.
During each week. Remembering those positive moments makes us realize how happy we are. It makes us smile and sets us up for the weekend. I'm very grateful to be here. That has made me really happy. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Karan. It's cool to be kind week. We filled a wall in our playground with kind deeds. We also shared our positive quotes. But we also know that happiness spreads very quickly. And that is what we like to do at John Stainer School. Thank you for listening.
Hello, my name is Nolan and I'm a Year 5 student at John Stainer Community School. I use meditation in lots of different contexts. I go to sleep. It's much less boring than counting sheep. I also use it when I'm struggling with a very hard maths lesson, which I often get. And it has really helped my class since they started the mindfulness course. We continue Mr. Bethian's legacy from last year by doing meditation in the mornings, which I think is awesome. Thank you.
when my Year 4 class found out that I was getting to meet the Dalai Lama today, they wanted to make you a gift. So they have illustrated their favourite happiness quotes, some of which they made up themselves. You might find one of your own quotes in there. And they'd like to present it to you now with the hope that it will make you smile and maybe a little bit happier. And to bring our piece of artwork on stage is the head teacher from John Stennis School, Sue Hart.
Please join me in thanking Adrian and Sue. Just a few examples of how simple ideas can really change people's lives for themselves, but also for the impact they have on others. And that's really been at the heart of your teaching and so much wisdom we're going to hear from today. We have an absolutely wonderful programme lined up for you today, so many other fantastic speakers. But of course, you've all come here not to hear from me and not to hear from the Action for Happiness story, but to actually hear from a great amount of wisdom that we have on this stage. So I'd like to invite the co-founder of Action for Happiness, Richard Layard, to begin a conversation, really. We have so much we'd love to ask you, Your Holiness. Please.
Well, it is absolutely wonderful to have you here. It's a dream of my life, I must say. And I suppose that everybody here knows that His Holiness is our patron, but you probably don't know that he was also our first member. Because you'll remember in Zurich, this is 5 years ago, I was on the platform together, and I was outlining our plans, and I was getting round to saying we were going to need to recruit some members, and up went your hand. You had it on camera. So you were our first member. The next thing we had to do, of course, was to appoint a director. And we interviewed some people as well as Mark, who's done an amazing job. And one of the candidates had gone into the internet to see was there any other organisation on the web that had the word happiness in the title. And the answer that came back on his screen was, your search for happiness has produced no results. So this is a very bad situation. And in a sense, it's why we founded Action for Happiness, because in our view, the mark of a good society is that people are enjoying their lives, feeling fulfilled, feeling happy. As few as possible are in despair or distress. And that, of course, is a great 18th century in the West, the great 18th century Enlightenment idea, which we think of as the founding principle of the modern Western world that took us from superstition to a more rational set of goals. But of course the problem is that so many people lost sight of this. That's why we founded Action for Happiness, to see if we could help to create a happier society. So what we ask all our members, and a lot of our members out here, who have taken a pledge to try to create a happier world as far as they can, and especially to produce as little misery as they can in the world. And I suppose there are two aspects to that. I mean, one is how we can achieve happiness in ourselves, and the other is how we can create happiness for others. They're not totally different, but I wondered if we could start with the first, the more personal, heartfelt aspect of how we can develop. So I would like to ask you, how can we have more inner peace? How can we have more peace in our hearts?
Basically, peace means I think no disturbances, no danger. That ultimately leads to our own sort of mental attitude. Mental attitude, some kind of peaceful, calm. Even surrounding things, not like that. You can maintain peace of mind. If your own mental attitude must be disturbed, lot of stress, lot of fear, distrust, then that's the facility there. Not get peace of mind. So that shows the ultimate source of peace of mind is not there. Of course, if some, I think the person who will not yet gain inner strength, then external environment really makes big differences. But once through training, familiarize with a certain inner strength, gain, then external also the environment will not much because of the differences. So now the question is, how to bring inner peace through darkness, even danger coming there. Some animal, you see, even danger just a next step, but so long as not fear, not see that, then they stay peacefully. So some can say darkness, right? Some can say, right? Not that way. Fully alert. Full sort of also the function about our intelligence. Very sort of also sharp mind. At the same time, that sharp mind itself, you see, utilize, analyze the long-term interest, the short-term interest, and that brings that you see help deeper awareness about our inner being. Then familiarize that inner sort of value. Then you gain, I think, from mental experience, the time factor is very important. So the more familiar, right? Then you see it's strength gain.
Starting walking directions to Lyceum Theatre.
So that
on Wellington Street,
good.
110 yards. Take right on Bow Street.
So therefore, main thing is our intelligence. So long this brain there, no matter what color outside hair, white or black or gold, brain is same. And also important is to know color, black, white, yellow, no differences in brain. And old age, sometimes the work activities bring little because of that. Weak. But that also, from young age, you see, utilize our intelligence. Maximum way, even physical getting older, your mind still remain fresh or sharp. We noticed number of people who really train many years, even physically, very old, but mind still very fresh, alert, like that. So that's same. Then warm-heartedness. All 7 billion beings, same. first come from our mother. We receive maximum affection from our mother, from our parents, everybody from our mother. So, all celebrating things, you see, I think these are potential from the beginning. Now, only question is whether you should pay more attention about these values. There's no question. In the front row, English, very big nose, very dignified sort of face. So I think it's difficult to say. I think existing Western education, I feel not adequate. It's of course that. So I think more and more people, whether believer or non-believer, you see, now more and more people really showing some deeper sort of the understanding of mental function is so very important for in our life. So I think in the past, when we talk about compassion, love, many people feel, oh, that's a religious practice. So actually, whether you accept religion or not, these human affection, human compassion, these things are, I think, a basic factor for our survival. Like that. So whether accept religion or not, are good individual. But these, somehow, we are human beings. We are part of the human society. We should deal with these things. That's my belief. So now, as I mentioned earlier, it was last now few decades. At the beginning, less people, less number of people showing interest in these things, except those religious people. Now time passes, more and more people showing. And now, not only showing interest, but also like you, actually try to implement. Not only you yourself implement, but try to increase active in these fields. So your sort of activities really something like, my responsibility is just to talk, blah, 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 blah. You implementing, you see, these things. So really wonderful, really wonderful. I appreciate it. And also, you see, more and more people showing genuine sort of interest or awareness in all of these things. And that gives me more encouragement and more hope. Sometimes, you see, in the early period, when I talk compassion, you see, sometimes feel, you see, I'm talking to rock. Now that changed, much change. You see, when I talk, you see, express these things, more and more people now really expressing some kind of agreement or acceptance, right? That's the only way. If existing sort of way of life, way of thinking continuously go, I think this 21st century also becomes century of violence, century of misery. Nobody wants that. Then if we want better world, we have to work. We just carry our own way of thinking, way of life, and expect something different. It's unrealistic. I often used to tell him, we usually, you see, when we face some problem, difficulties, those believers always pray to God or Buddha. So as if this problem also created by God or Buddha. I think if we have the opportunity seeing God or Buddha, I think Buddha, God, I think most of them say, oh, ask me, this problem you created. I think God will say, I give you, I said, a free will out of God's love. You use wrong way. So most of the problem which we humanity now facing, even the global warming, in some extent, I think are responsible. So therefore, you see, I think, and also is logically, this problem we created. So logically, we also have the opportunity or ability to reduce this problem. Finally, eliminate this problem. Because these are our own creations. So difference is, our generation created a lot of problems. So now this younger generation, usually I call generation of 21st century, let them solve this problem. Please now relax. That's the difference. Otherwise, human problem must be solved by human being. Yes. So, you see, your sort of the ideas and your sort of activities is really wonderful.
Well, thank you. I wondered if I could ask you, can I ask you a personal question?
Oh, yes.
You have many difficulties in life. We even hear them outside. How do you manage to stay so cheerful? For example, I mean, many people would like to have some automatic method to lift their spirits if they feel down or something bad happens. Have you got some automatic method like that, or do we have to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning?
I think, you see, difficulties or circumstances which usually, you see, getting frustration or anger, that's the best period to implement your practice. So, if you have some sort of experience, that is more difficult. Like here, you see, I think you also may have heard, you see, here, you see the shouting, false Dalai Lama, stop fighting. So I really feel they also use freedom of expression. Wonderful, very good. Then they are criticizing me. Then I have to think whether I really made some mistake or not. If you make mistake, then very good. They are not pointing your faults. If you did not haven't made mistake, then feel pity or sense of concern for their how ignorant. You see, their anger, you see, no proper reason. So then that develops more sense of concern, sense of compassion. So like that. So then there was one Tibetan sort of master, who expressed, if you face some criticism, then you think, oh, fortunately, they not hit me, not beating me. That's criticism. Then some beating you, then think, not kill me. Wonderful. If they kill you, then finished. So like that, things are from one Madhyamika philosophy is, I think, a wonderful sort of concept. Everything is interrelated. So compare one thing is good, compare another thing bad. So much involve mental projection. So therefore, you see every event, one way negative, one way or you find some positive. So if we focusing only on the negative side, then frustration, these things come. If you look more holistic, then this bad thing also you see, so that gives you some opportunity or now for example, opportunity of practice like that. So then you get sort of that more enthusiasm, more positive sort of mentality. So these, all these, you see, much will depend on training of your mind. And certain, also the holistic view, like that.
I wanted to ask you about our relationships, because we know experience from science also that human relationships are extraordinarily important to our personal happiness. But so often, family relationships, other relationships get poisoned by destructive emotions. So how can we have happier relationships and avoid this pollution from destructive emotions?
Basically, we are social animal. So biologically, any social animal, emotionally, certain kind of mental attitude which bring together. So that's love, affection. Even some animals, those social animal kind, right? Those kind of social animals, some limited sort of affection or compassion, bring together, live together, peacefully. So we are social animals. Then, I think today's reality. I think century-old concept, you see, we and they on the basis of religious faith or basis of country, my country, their country, and we and they. I think that today's reality not much relevant. Today we need a sense of concern of entire 7 billion human beings. Because we are part of 7 billion human beings. Our future very much depends on the well-being of whole humanity. So that's now today's reality. Global warming, not to make differences, this nation, that nation, or this continent, that continent. And global economy also beyond national boundaries or religious boundaries. So now I think the reality telling us you need sense of global responsibility on the basis of sense of oneness of humanity. So on that, you see, so therefore, I think violence, war is outdated. It's century old. In the past, you see, it is something quite, I think, the reality. My nation, my continent. Yeah. So, according to that reality, destroy your enemy. That anyway could be some kind of victory yourself. So on that reality, concept of war, mobilized, even some extent legalized violence, killing human beings by human beings. Morally speaking, unthinkable. But because of too much of stress, we and they. But now, no longer is that reality. So still, I think most of these problems we are facing is, I think, due to our own perception, we as they. So, continuously carrying that perception is increase gap, reality and perception. So the reality is just one small blue planet. In the perception, still we carry too much clusters, we and they. I always admire the spirit of European Union. Previously, you see, these different nations, you see, very much concerned about their own sovereignty or something. Now, gradually, during Adenauer and de Gaulle, the century-old thinking, French and German, that kind of thing, completely changed. So common interest is more important than just individual national interest. So European Union set up. Englishmen didn't hesitate whether to join or not.
We did eventually. And hopefully we'll continue.
So I think clear sign of the maturity of human beings through difficulties, through decades, decades through difficulties. I think it seems to see the Western world thinking these things are more advanced. In Asia, I think still thinking, older thinking, we, they, but as Africa and Latin America. So eventually, I think the spirit of European Union is must spread. One time, I think you, I mentioned or not, a few occasions, some Nobel laureate meeting, and also some another meeting, a different meeting, I expressed the NATO headquarters should shift to Moscow. Then it is psychologically, the Russian people's mind, you see, psychologically come closer. So therefore, you see, now, the European Union is a must spread, expand. Then meantime, Africa, I think, should follow examples of the European Union. Africa, Pan-Africa, or Union of Africa, I think much stronger. And Asia also, like that. So these, I think, are common interests and should think seriously and on the basis of sense of universal responsibility.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
think that.
Totally. Could we move on to what you call secular ethics? I know it's a phrase you like, and we discussed it in Madison.
Yeah.
And by, I think you mean that the way we behave to each other, the principles, should be based on human need. And they don't require a religious justification, even though, of course, many religions come up with the same principles. So we're now, in the West anyway, in a fairly non-religious society here. And we felt, and this is one reason we founded Action for Happiness, that we really need a movement to stand for these ethical values and to help people in leading better lives than they can on their own, through forming groups and helping people to support each other in living well. So you've heard some of what we are trying to do in Action for Happiness. I think it's your first exposure. I think we'd love to hear, how you think a movement like ours can represent secular ethics and whether we're doing it the right way, whatever impression you had of the course and what Mark is talking about, because that's what we're really trying to launch off today.
Any moral principle or any sort of practice of love, compassion, based on religious faith, then there is sort of boundary or limitation. So these problems, worldwide, the problem of humanity. So among humanity, I saw some report. Out of 7 billion, over 1 billion non-believer. And then frankly speaking, among the believer also, some, I think, was half-hearted sort of believer. Those who are, when they are happy, good mood in church, seems very smile. But then when they are really facing some problem as a human being, then no longer that sort of the Holy Spirit no longer there. So one time in Mexico, you see, I went on, I think, Catholic college. They invited me to talk. So beside student, some bishops also there. Then I comes of mind, we should talk about these matters. Then at the end, half joke, half sort of teasing, I mentioned, quite often, we religious people, our religious practice or religious belief remain on our dress, not here. So long that dress there, and then looks holy person. When dress, as a table, no longer holy person. So number of bishops, they walking there. Then next morning, an old bishop came to see me. He very much appreciated that my comment. So among the believer also, you see, some are not very serious. So these, I think, a lack of strong conviction about value of love, of honest truth, these things. So if people have some sort of agreement, these values, appreciation about these values, then various different religious traditions, in spite of different philosophy, all carry a message of love, compassion. And with that, practice of forgiveness, tolerance, all religious traditions carry. So wonderful for further strengthening these practices. At the same time, non-believer, whether they accept religion or not, are very individual. But so long they are human beings. So long they are born from mother, they receive the immense affection from their mother. So, whether believer or non-believer, we all have same seed, and we all need affection. Affection in the family. So after all, the social element, family or friend, very important. In order to develop genuine friend or friendship entirely based on trust. Trust based on honesty. Honest, very much related with sense of concern of their well-being there. Then honesty comes. If you remain a little distant from other, then sometimes necessary to artificial smile. That will not bring trust. Without trust, how can we bring friendship? So these mental systems of the mind, of hardness there, show your sense of concern. Then trust comes. Trust brings friendship. So therefore, even animal, in order to become very close friendship, animal, first we should show your love. Then they trust you. Just feeding, not education. So then we human beings, our mind much more sophisticated. So not one day or 1 week. weeks, months, years, then comes to come. Oh, this person is really reliable, trustworthy. Then a friendship comes. Sometimes, unfortunately, people, day-to-day life, you see, carry very honest. And sometimes people feel that's little bit sort of that. Suicide is a better solution. So to say, not that clever. See, clever, the sign of clever is some cunning. So I think too much honest, sometimes people feel there's a little dull or too much innocent, right? Like that. And it's a harsh, now you will consider something with a person. I think it's wrong perception. I think real strength comes from truth, honest, truthful. Then strength comes. Telling lie, beautiful lie, cheating, or pretension. One day, sooner or later, people lost one's trust. I think the source of trust, basis of trust. I feel like that. So my own experience, now 80 years old, I think except when I study seriously, I mean study with reluctant, out of fear, somewhere would set from my future. Then sometimes even I tell a little lie to my teacher. Then 9 years with Chinese communists. I have to tell some lies. Yeah. 59, after I came to India, I telling some, when I met some Chinese, I always telling them, March 59, I left Lhasa, then April, March, I reached India, then actually I liberated my sort of pretension or some little lie. Now, since then, I tell it honest, truth, quite frank, like that. So that brings me inside free. If I tell a little lie, yeah, something. Something lie.
I think you're amazing how you're a self-sustaining individual, but not everybody is as self-sustaining as you are. And I'd like to pursue the organisation question, because you talk a great deal about values and how people should behave. But if we think back to the days when those people were religious, the way that they learned to behave was by going frequently to church and meeting with other people who were expressing the same moral views and reinforcing each other. So making it easier to live well by meeting regularly with people who have the same views and raises your aspirations, gives you some inner strength, uplifts you, inspires you. Do you think that there is a problem in the modern Western world that we don't have organizations to promote secular ethics in that way? We have great teachers, but we don't have organizations. And do you think that Action for Happiness could be an organization that helped to perform that kind of role? That's really what we're trying to do. But I'd love to know, how you think it can be done successfully.
I think your work, you initiated this kind of sort of the new pattern, right? A new movement. Wonderful. So now, I think you start in England. So to, in different sort of area, try to sort of expand. Then this eventually should be international organization. Then at least in European countries, as I mentioned earlier, Africa, and some other countries. I think from various sort of corner, this kind of movement now coming, it's really, I think, really hopeful sign. One single person, one single organization is difficult to change whole humanity. So different part of the world, different field, different profession, I think aiming same goal, try to build happy world. The different profession, education, or even economists, you see, goal should be happy world. So their immediate responsibility is to try to bring, try to reduce this gap between poor. The technology, engineer, they also, you see, aiming not produce weapon, not produce some sort of more violent nature, even toy, not violent nature. And then scientists, of course, very important. Now you see modern science. Many people believe in science. So, I'm very happy to see more and more scientists now really showing genuine interest about deeper human nature. That means human emotion, human mind. Classical science mainly is deal with matter, but including brain. Now they go deeper. The consciousness or emotion is a little bit sort of hidden sort of phenomenon. But now scientists also see deeper. And they found basic human nature is more positive, more compassionate. And compassionate sort of heart is very, very important for our health. And no questions for happy family, happy community. Furthermore, happy nation, happy humanity. So the scientific sort of scientific research or scientific sort of research really very, very helpful. So, and the religious people. I just, when you mentioned you use some occasion to discuss these things, I just said that. From the church service, Sunday church service, at the beginning, some formal sort of service. Then people, you see, remain in the church, and some sort of private sort of discussions, including their problems. Let them, you see, some talk, some discussions. Maybe, I don't know. That's I don't know. So it is very useful. You see, people, when you see, have you see another sort of friend, you see, who can, you can share your problems, your difficulties. That is very, very helpful to your emotional life. Otherwise, you see, these things are sort of dumb senses. Or kept to oneself, then more frustrations.
Well, Mark was telling me about the course that they have been testing out and trialing, which has many elements, of course. It has some video of some inspired teacher, and it has some scientific material of the kind that you talk about, then it has some time for discussions of personal experience. Mark was telling me that actually the best thing of all is when people are talking to each other about their personal experiences.
Yes.
This is a really powerful time on this course. But you mentioned the scientific aspect. I think